are fans of the series, we say, thank you for not messing it up. This season has been fantastic. Well, no, you know what? Am I allowed to say this? That I've seen the season, and it's freaking amazing. Yes. In fact, I'm going to tell you everything that happens. No, and I've heard so many people say that season 2 is even better than season 1, which I didn't think would be possible. At the same time, coming back for season 2, after such a highly acclaimed first season, was there some trepidation? How did you tune out that noise and just concentrate on the story you wanted to tell?
There was only trepidation for 3 years. That was very much the space I lived in. No, it was, wonderful and humbling that people responded to the first season the way that they did. But it was immediately, followed by this sort of crushing pressure of just not wanting to let everybody down and be exposed for the fraud that I've always known I am deep down. But then it really was, it was like one of the first couple of days on set when I started to hear the words, coming out of these guys' mouths, and it just occurred. I was just like, yeah, it's still there. Like whatever we did the first time, it's still there, and in fact, I think we can do it even better.
And let's just say Dan Erickson is the real deal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm curious for the actors. I mean, this show has such smart and passionate fans, and I'm sort of curious how that has changed your life or even your career. John, we've known for years you're one of our best living actors of all time. But even knowing that, there's got to be a noticeable shift with Severance. People are so passionate about Irving. And do they want to come up to you and talk about the show or just hug you?
I have both.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean,
John Turturro is open for hugs, everyone.
Yeah, as long as they're polite. Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Even at this point in your career, though, is it strange?
I think the show, I've done a lot of things. I think the show hits, you can do some wonderful things that no one ever sees. And this show, has the support of Apple, and it's hit sort of the zeitgeist of something. Yeah, especially in younger people, I think, because you don't know exactly who you are. You're still trying to find yourself. I've had experiences like Dan had when he was writing this thing, doing a job, and you're saying, please get me out of here, shut my brain off, I can't go through this. But it just hit, maybe it's after, COVID and something, but people, it's very participatory type of show. And I think people, their responses are just as valid as anything that Dan writes, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, there are some people who write things and performers who answer the question, and then there are some people who ask the question. And I think I've always been attracted to people who ask the question, that you don't know everything. And I think Dan has that in the show, and we, all try to embody that to the best of our abilities.
Who's nicest, Severance fans, Adam Sandler fans, or Coen Brothers fans? Because those are 3 really good groups, I feel.
I can't. It's everyone has, everyone's, but people are very involved in the show.
Yeah, and they love Irving.
I think it's the mustache.
I think there's something to the voice. I think it's the cadence and the way he talks. I'm curious how you hit on that.
Well, Dan wrote me a very interesting backstory before I agreed to do the show. And then from that, I did a lot of research, and I actually turned Dan on to some of the research I did. And I did talk to certain people, and there was and then I thought, okay, this is what I want to do. And when I first started doing it, Ben sort of, we spoke about this on his podcast, he sort of flipped out, and he was like, like that. And I said, well, just let me listen to it. And then I just took a little bit off of it. But I wasn't going to change it no matter what. Because I think that, I think Stella Adler said this, that your talent lies in your choice.
Mm-hmm.
And if you make the right choice, a lot of doors open up. And sometimes if you make the wrong choice, I think that's why Ben was maybe nervous, it can be really constricting.
Yeah.
And so it did. And I also think I was responding to Dan's dialogue. I thought, there's a formality and a rigidity to the character and a loneliness and everything. And I thought, well, he's someone who listens to, WP, he listens to classical music on the radio. And it was like, so it was hinted at.
Yeah.
So.
And Britt, what has this been like for you? I mean, like, was there a moment you sort of realized, like, when you started seeing, like, Hellies at Halloween or something like that, that you had, struck a nerve?
Yeah, definitely Halloween.
Yeah.
Was a big moment for me. I also cannot enter an elevator the same ever, which is kind of a delight.
Yeah.
But
like, people get nervous when you get on the elevator?
No, just I was on an elevator with some fans once. They indicated that they were fans by, one of them said very subtly, our fans are so smart and subtle, we're all going to be different when we get out of here. And I just thought that was so perfect. But yeah, like John was saying, that it's such a gift to be on a show that's about consciousness, and for it to be, the world of the show to be expanding in the minds of our viewers. It's just really fascinating for us each week to see how much people are engaging with it and thinking about it and making analogies to their own experience. I mean, as an artist, I can't think of a better thing to experience on our side of it. So yeah, and Heliar has just made me a more confident person getting to be in her shoes. So
what about being Helena? Because she's not so nice.
I mean, it's a good question.
He refuses to answer.
I'm gonna have John answer the Helena Egan question.
Well, it's fascinating on so many levels because you're playing not only Helena and Helly, but Helena pretending to be Helly. So it's really almost like three characters. Do you think about them as all separate entities? And how did you build, this version of Helly for the first 4 episodes?
The best way I can describe it is in analogy. It's like a Photoshop image, and it's the same source material, but you're shifting. And we had lots of conversations between Dan and Ben, and increasing the saturation or diluting the shadows. I don't know. It's very hard to explain.
Yeah.
But it was an exciting 5-dimensional puzzle that we all put together, and then of course a lot of that was informed by my teammates and how they were responding to Helena's attempt at blending in, and Irving, for whatever reason, picked up on, perhaps because of his training, but I think also because of Heliar and Irving's connection that they built, he was able to pick up on some things that Dylan and Mark weren't able to.
Yeah. Dan, can you talk about, like, in this episode we just saw, Woe's Hallow, why was now the time to reveal this, or was it all leading up to this? Did you have the whole season sort of mapped out and know that this was going to be the turning point?
We actually discussed a couple of different versions of it. There was a draft of episode 2 where we actually made the reveal, and part of me thought that it would be fun to do that thing where you're it's like Norman Bates trying to bury the body in the car. Where you get the audience to sort of like you use tension to get the audience to be almost rooting for the unrootable character, somebody doing something truly awful. But at the end of the day, we knew our audience enough to know that people would probably be having that conversation. Even after the first episode, that there would be some people who would sort of put it together, and that discourse would really bring people in, like in the way that both Britt and John were talking about, where it really is an interactive show. And so, we wanted something where we wanted people to wonder, and we wanted to live in that kind of ambiguous space. And, fortunately, Britt's performance was magnificent enough that we were able to sort of ride that line in exactly the way we were hoping for. But no, there was a couple of different versions that we talked about. It was going to be in 2. At one point, we were going to hold off longer, but at the end of the day, this felt like the spot.
How much do you know in advance when shooting the season? Do you have the whole season arc planned out, or do you sort of get it as the episodes come? Like, did you know that you were going to have an all-outy outdoor episode?
I don't know if we've got the first 4 episodes or not. I don't know if we
Yeah.
got that, if that came a little bit later. But it usually comes in bunches, and then
Yeah.
there's little revisions and things.
Was there a heads up that you were going to have to be out in the cold? Did anyone warn you?
Well, I was very happy to be out.
Really?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we all were. We were
Yeah.
so excited.
I
to
mean,
have-
I'd rather be out in the cold than in that office any day. Freeze me to death out there, and I'd stay out there. Yeah. I don't like fluorescent lighting. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. In any shape, form, and no matter what. So, for me, I thought, for a lot of personal reasons too, it was a very revitalizing. I had gone through something, and it was great for me to be outside and sit with Britt and stuff at times, and just kind of brought me, back to life a little bit. Yeah.
I bet it was refreshing. I just hate the cold.
So I watched the majority of this episode be shot from my deck in Silver Lake. I was here working on revisions for a future episode, and I believe it was Mark Friedman who was on set for a lot of this stuff. So I spent a lot of time, sitting out on my deck chair and watching the feed and being like, oh, they look cold. I hope they're okay.
This is
More
what
wine.
I went to undergrad school. I studied in New York at Sandy Meisner. I went to Yale Drama School. But they never do anything with temperature. They should freeze you out. They should make it 120 degrees. Because that's basically like half of your job.
Yep. Or sleep deprive you.
Yeah, sleep deprive you,
Yes.
the whole thing, waterboard, and just say, okay, now do the scene. Now do the Chekhov scene. See you do it. And this is what happens when you're at it. You're like, okay, this person's shivering, and it's I have a lot of things, scars from, all that stuff, in your body.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh when you say that. It's
the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth. Yeah.
I do wonder because sort of what the mood is like on set, because you actually are co-workers with Adam and Zach, and you're getting outside for the first time. In a weird way, did it feel like a work outing?
Yeah, I mean, we got to take these little gators up the mountain every morning together, and
then a rope.
It was actually like a team building experience. I mean,
really
we're a tight knit group anyway, but it was really fun to just like John said, be in these awe inspiring vistas. And I was particularly excited to not be wearing pantyhose for once.
I think you kept saying that.
I did, and they were like, "We know, Britt." And I was like, "But pants." And just to be together and to get to work in the elements with John on that scene. At the end, the elements were dangerous, and it was freezing cold temperatures in the water and icy rock, and we had an amazing safety team and stunt team who helped us to get physically safe, and John is an incredible role model of mine, but also just made me feel so safe in that scene so that we could go to where we needed to go emotionally, and so just getting to work with the sun, getting to work with the elements of nature was super exciting, and good job writing it, Dan.
Well, thank you. Well, and I at one point fell asleep on the deck. And got
You mean you were drunk?
I didn't say that.
I'm very happy to hear that.
But yeah, and I got a little bit of a sunburn, so it was rough on all of us. Is the point.
I am so curious about that scene because you shot the actual water submersion there. I assume that was done in a studio somewhere. Like this sounds brutal.
It was a hybrid. So I did go into the water on location. It was very cold. But then there was a tank for the Zolly shot where you see the transition that was done in a tank because the camera had to be underneath. But yeah, we were in the water.
Yeah.
That's something they really don't prepare you for is underwater acting with a camera in your face.
Yeah.
There's no class on that.
No.
Yeah.
That's amazing. How long did it take to shoot that scene?
That was, I don't know, a couple of days, I think.
Couple of
I mean,
days.
we had, just to get down the rocks, you don't really see it that well, actually. That was the only thing I was a little disappointed on. It was so weird, and we kind of did it in steps. We did like a dance kind of move. Like she went this way, I went this way, and I would hold her. And it was hard to navigate because we were slipping and sliding and to get her to go down. And so we choreographed it, and then we just, I said, you hold on to me. And,
Yeah.
and I think when you work together, you can actually go further emotionally instead of trying to create like a false animosity or something like that. And it's like it's like a dance. It's like you're doing it's a different kind of dance, but that's what it is.
I was curious about that because, in addition to that scene, which is so fantastic, but, the characters are kind of brutal to each other in this episode. They say some really hurtful things, and I understand it's acting, but I also know your body doesn't always know the difference, and you probably love these characters. Do you have a way to, all sort of check in with each other, and, after he tries to drown you, do you hug?
Oh, that's different. That's a different thing. I care about Britt, and that would be like a nightmare. And I was even nervous about even putting her head in the water a little bit. But the other stuff, that kind of stays with you a little bit more.
Yeah,
you don't
really.
apologize to someone after you do a scene and you hurt them, or you hurt their feelings, because that was your job, to hurt their feelings, in the thing. And it is weird sometimes when you do things because you feel your body doesn't know the difference, and you're like, well, no one likes me. That's how it is in the scene. But that means you're working well.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't relieve that. In that kind of thing, that's different.
Yeah.
That's a different thing.
Well, that is stunt coordination. That is a lot of people involved,
I
too.
mean, we did a lot of that ourselves.
Yeah. Really?
Yes, we did. And because I think if you know what you're doing, you can say, hey, this is what I want to do, and the other guys can watch us do that. Because sometimes with stunt work, it becomes too stunty.
Yeah, that's a danger.
It becomes like, and it's like, and so we're both kind of physical people, so it was fine.
Dan, I wonder what it's like for you as someone who writes this and creates this. Like, you write this amazing dialogue and all this amazing lore, and then there's something in this episode that I just love so much, and it's when they throw the marshmallows away, and the way Dylan just goes, why? You cannot script that delivery. Like, what is it like for you to see something like that, and is it always a joy to watch these actors elevate your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that line was actually just improvised altogether, I think. But to me, that's like a visceral, that's what I would just instinctively yell if delicious marshmallows were being wasted and I was cold and hungry. So yeah, no, I mean, it's great. And I just think that it's funny, especially because I like to be on set as much as possible, because that's when you see those sort of magical moments just spontaneously come into existence. And if you can be there and see it, live in front of you, it's really it's hard to describe, because this is something that you've been living with. This has been in your head, this has been in your heart for months and months and months, but then it's not alive until it's alive.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting.
Is there ever danger of laughing or ruining a take, or just being so in awe of your scene partner that you kind of forget you're in the moment?
We bring a lot of levity in between scenes. I mean, we're often playing childlike games, but yeah, I mean, especially Zach is extremely funny. I don't know, do we break?
Not usually too much.
Not a lot.
Not with the only person I really crack up with really is with Chris.
Really?
Yeah, that's the only person who really cracks me. I mean, because sometimes we've worked together so long, he'll do
Yeah.
something that's so out of left field that, it's never gonna be considered, but I just lose it, but that's just because we know each other for
Yeah.
so many years, or
Yeah.
sometimes Chris has asked me, like, he doesn't understand, the scene, I'll say, like, I don't get what we're doing here. I would be like, Chris, listen, you look at me, I look at you, you want to get in my pants, I want to get in your pants. And he's like, yeah, I got it, man, and we just, we get it, he'll make sense of it. But sometimes, he was like lost, and sometimes we're all lost.
Well,
And, we're all like, well, something's bleeding through from my outie to my innie to my outie, and, maybe I'm my innie, and it's like, sometimes it's friggin' confusing, you know what I mean? But he's the only person who will admit it, you know what I mean? He'll really admit it, and that's what I adore about him, and I just, love him so much. So I know him for such a long time, so I just, it's like acting with someone who's so experienced, and he still has this little child in him. And for me, it's impossible to not, go to him. It's like, it's almost impossible for me to do that, with him. So it's a long, that's something you really treasure.
Yeah.
That you get a chance, like if we worked on something again together, it would be different. Then you have this other thing, it's a long journey.
Yeah.
This life.
When did you first meet? Because
Chris?
Yeah.
I met him when I was a student at Yale Drama School, and he was in a play. And I think he was hitting on my girlfriend at the time. At a party, yeah. And I was like, well, I'm enamored of him. He likes my girlfriend. Well, he's a great actor.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I've seen him do so many plays
Oh
and
my
stuff.
gosh,
I mean,
yeah.
since he's a very delicate person.
Yeah.
He actually really is.
Really?
He's a very delicate person. That's right.
And you said he does some things that are so out there. Dan, do you see these like in editing, and are you ever tempted to keep them?
Yeah. I mean, I would never, of course, but there's a lot of there's things that happen in takes, and then there's times where the camera is rolling, and it's just there's these delightful conversations between these two men that I'm like, I feel like I'm watching something that should be in the Smithsonian. It's like, this should be preserved for perpetuity forever. Just this like dumb conversation between John and Chris.
Yeah, but the truth of the matter, what I've learned from Chris is sometimes you can do something that's really, really bad, and that kind of loosens you up to discover something that you didn't think about in the next take. And sometimes the next take is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, we got all the crazy stuff out of the way. And you get out of that sort of self-conscious trying to be good.
Yeah.
It's not possible to try to be good. You just have to be. He gives us the words and, be together. You can't try to be good. And I think that's one thing I've learned, over the years. Just, you unzip yourself and then let it go. You know what I mean?
Well, how nice to have the freedom to fail too, to do something that maybe doesn't work. And
well, some people, it's still very brave. You know what I mean?
Yes.
When Chris does it, then it's like, I learned that from him.
That's actually really cool. Something else I love about this episode is there's a lot of new Lumen lore. Like I was not expecting a twin brother to come out of nowhere, and I love the characters' reactions to that. Like they're like, we should know about Dieter. Who the F is Dieter? Was that something you always had planned? Because something I find really reassuring about the show is, I know you know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. I might not have all the answers, but I know you do. Mm-hmm. And you're going to give them to us eventually.
Yeah, one of these days. We had known about Dieter, not from like the beginning of writing the show, but for a while we had this idea for him. But there's a lot that just comes out in the writer's room. It's a surprise. We didn't know he was going to spill his lineage necessarily, and that was something. It just sort of came out through conversation. But it is a lot of it is, you know, we look at the lore of different religions and different organizations that you might call cults and things like that, where, you know, there's just these weird stories that, you know, in another context would be hilarious, but people take them so seriously. And, you know, this idea of this young boy being punished for masturbation by melting into a forest. His eye pops out.
Horrible.
Yeah,
Still can't
his
recover
hair
from
turns
that.
to grass. But it's like, it's the type of thing that seems like we exaggerated it until you read actual stories from, and it's like, no, it's all like that. Like, it's all weird shit like that.
Yeah.
And these are the moments I have empathy for Helena Egan.
Yes.
Yeah, I do.
Having
Yeah.
been raised
Oh my
in
God,
this
yes. Yeah,
lore, this is like she grew up in this high control group
Yeah.
with these bizarre stories, and I think you see in this episode her first opportunity to get to laugh out loud at it.
Yeah.
And I can imagine it was freeing for her.
That laugh was a long time coming
Yeah.
from her, I think.
It's heartbreaking when she says she didn't like who she was on the outside, because I think she means it. You know? And I feel really bad for her.
You think she means it.
Yeah, but
Maybe she does.
Yeah.
I think this, you know, I was thinking about that today too.
I actually, yeah.
Yeah.
What is it
Don't
like
tell
for you as actors? I love how you, as your innies or, you know, go outside, you're having to play this naivete, like looking at, you know, the world's largest waterfall, which in and of itself. I like how they,
It's
yeah.
amazing they let us shoot there.
Yeah. They don't even seem to buy it though, or they're not that impressed, or maybe you're just hungry. I don't know. But
I think they want food. I think that's the main thing.
food is first.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. But you know, to play that without, I guess it's naivete without being. These are very smart characters. You know, and I'm sort of curious if that's sort of like a nice place to go back to kind of that innocent, clean slate.
I mean, I think we all approach it a little bit differently, but for me, I think about the inner child that awakens in the innie's consciousness. And for me, it's like the outie is the inner critic, and we all have those within ourselves. We have that part of ourselves that is a bit more hardened by our experience, and we have that part of ourselves that is pure, raw, id energy, and those are sometimes at odds with each other. And you see this season especially, all of the innies kind of have contrasting desires with their outies, and that's just one of the ways that I contextualize it for myself.
I think you can, you know, kids are really smart.
Yeah.
Little kids are really smart. I mean, I was a substitute school teacher for a while, yeah, and I taught high school, and I also taught 5th and 6th graders. But I mean, some of the kids, they were really, really smart and really, really innocent at the same time, you know. And so they would be sophisticated on one level, and on another level, they wouldn't be, you know. I had a kid who used to have to pee all the time. His name was Juan, and I used to always think, Juan, it's impossible. You don't have to go to the bathroom 20 times a day, you know. So, but he was always excited about car shows, because he was interested in engines, and he used to draw pictures of me. It's like right out of like something like out of Keir Law, and he would give me these pictures of me, but I was in different automobiles, like a Mercedes-Benz, you know, a Dodge Ford pickup truck, and Mr. Turturro. You'd see me from the side, you know. I was like, Juan, you're the greatest, man. I have all these pictures of me, you know, in different cars.
That's so cool.
And I found out years later that he designs engines.
That's
You know,
Yeah.
and he was so cute. But he was bright, and so I think he taps into this kind of 5th grade, 4th grade, 3rd grade type of thing, you know, and it's funny.
Also, kids are honest,
They are.
whether you want them to be or not. So.
There, yeah, no, it's funny. I also worked with kids quite a bit before this gig, and it was it was yeah, like I was a nanny in Manhattan for a while to like a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, And it was, they can cut you right down to size. Like, way worse than any actor.
Oh yeah, I see kids I cross the street. They know how to get you. I'm so sorry we're out of time because you're going to tell us what happens the rest of the season.
I was about to.
Yeah. But please join us for a reception, I believe, upstairs. Is that correct? Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a great audience.